I think you and I both know within every ounce of our being, every bone in our bodies, how important relationship building truly is for our kids, for ourselves, for our communities, for teaching and learning. And so in this episode, we're focusing in on the one layer of human intelligence that has everything to do with relationships, which is relational intelligence, so that all of us as educators can start the school year off thriving.
What's true about that, though, is it's not magic. I wasn't doing anything magical. I, as an individual, I am not magical. I just happen to have a very big toolkit now that I was able to use and I was able to live and I was able to hand and build inside of my classroom and give to my kids. When I was able to cultivate these pieces into my everyday classroom, that's when no more behaviors went down to the office. That's when our scores started to climb. That's when I started loving being in the classroom again. This, for me, was the magic mover here. So that's what we're going to do today.
Absolutely.
We are going to share several pieces of that toolkit.
Absolutely. It's our back to school series. I am so excited to be here with you, Beth, to dive into our favorite topic in the world, which is relationships and community building. And I think you and I both know within every ounce of our being, every bone in our bodies, how important relationship building truly is for our kids, for ourselves, for our communities, for teaching and learning. And so in this episode, we're focusing in on the one layer of human intelligence that has everything to do with relationships, which is relational intelligence, so that all of us as educators can start the school year off thriving.
Yeah. Culture building, we know, is a foundational piece in
Yes.
any classroom. And there are plenty of studies to back this up, that the better relationships you have with your students and that they can foster with one another, the better performance you're going to see from them. I mean, when we feel safe and seen in our learning environments, that's where real learning becomes accessible.
Absolutely. I mean, we've done so many studies at Breathe for Change over the last 11 years that have demonstrated that with this emphasis on relationship building and the cultivation of community within a classroom, within a school culture, there's improvements in math and literacy skills and all academic outcomes across the board. There's improvements in chronic absenteeism rates, right? More students are actually showing up for the learning that all of us are here to offer. And we're seeing reductions in students being sent to the office, students being expelled. We're seeing total decrease in behavior challenges, which I know showed up in your master's capstone. And it's just so critical that we as educators not only plan out our math, our literacy, and our science lessons, but that we're thinking critically about how are we going to intentionally foster a deep sense of belonging and cultivate human connection within our learning spaces.
Yeah, and I would argue that it's actually, that is the foundational piece. That has to come
100%.
before any subject matter can be taught. And I know through my own lived experience on my Breathe for Change journey, I started at rock bottom where I was no longer feeling access to the relationship building part of my job. I was so depleted, I couldn't do it anymore.
I remember.
But then once I had started to restore self, this was the next activating piece that showed up for me. And the next thing I knew, I was utilizing practices that were fostering collective energetic, that were building classroom culture. And it was all based in what we now identify as relational intelligence. I mean, in a past episode, we had my superintendent on, and this is a piece he brought to our attention.
He called you a super spreader because he said that you literally had this magic ability to build relationships within classrooms, across classrooms, within and across entire schools, and within your whole district, literally as a classroom teacher. And then he promoted you to director of curriculum of
Right.
your whole district as a result this last year, literally because you were a super spreader of relationship building and
Right.
culture building.
And he wants it throughout his district. What's true about that, though, is it's not magic. I wasn't doing anything magical. I, as an individual, I am not magical. I just happen to have a very big toolkit now that I was able to use and I was able to live and I was able to hand and build inside of my classroom and give to my kids. And so that's what we're going to do today. We are going
Absolutely.
to share
The
several pieces
toolkit.
of that toolkit. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, just to ground all of you who are listening into our human intelligence framework for a moment. So, we've created at Breathe for Change our human intelligence framework, and we've got these 5 layers. We have somatic intelligence, which is intelligence of the body. We have emotional intelligence, which is a term many of us have heard before. That's our intelligence of our emotions. We have cognitive
Mhm.
intelligence, which we all know in education, everything is focused on the cognitive, but this is really our capacity to tap into our creativity and all those things related to that. Then we have relational intelligence, which is what we are focusing on today. This is all about cultivating a deep sense of belonging and
Yeah.
connection through every single interaction. And in the context of teaching, through our experience facilitating learning. And then universal intelligence, which is
Yeah.
our connection to our purpose, something greater than ourselves. And so today we're honing in on the relational
Yeah.
aspect of human intelligence. And we have 5 competencies, and we'll take you through some of our favorite practices in each competency because we believe that each competency is critical.
Absolutely.
Absolutely critical. You can't have relational intelligence without embodying and teaching each of these 5 competencies. The first one being interpersonal awareness, like what is going on within these interactions, within my classroom? How am
Yes.
I attuning to what is going on in the field? That's
Mhm.
interpersonal awareness, paying attention to the dynamics
Mhm.
relationally or communally that are surfacing. Then we have empathy. Once you're aware, how can you connect to another or to a group of students or colleagues while still honoring your own boundaries, which I think is a really difficult skill for us as educators. And then we have the third competency, repair,
Mhm.
which, let's be honest, if we all learned how to repair in school, we'd be living in a completely different world
We sure would.
today. And this is really about learning to communicate vulnerably, listen with care, and take ownership of our impact in relationships. Then we have the fourth competency of belonging,
Yeah.
cultivating that deep sense of belonging where everyone feels included, where they feel seen, heard, valued, celebrated for who they are. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, we see this fifth competency of connection as kind of the end all be all. This is
Mhm.
what relational intelligence is about,
Mhm.
human connection,
Yeah.
right? Creating a classroom, creating a school, creating a community, creating a world where everyone experiences deep, rich, intimate human connection. And so we are going to share our favorite strategies across those 5 competencies so that you have this relational intelligence toolkit that you can integrate into your teaching, into your classroom, into your staff meetings to create a whole culture of relationship building.
And what this can foster inside of a classroom is all of those things you just said. I
Mhm.
mean, it's going to people are going to start to see how they're interacting with their peers. People are going to begin to start to have empathy
Mhm.
for one another. They're going to learn those practices. They're not always taught these things in their home
No.
environments. They will learn the act of repair. This is a conversation that I have had with several of the adults that I work with that they don't have this in their interpersonal relationships anywhere. The act
Mhm.
of repair is it's just phenomenally important for healthy relationships. And then we move from there, we get into our belonging where every child has to feel safe in order to be able to learn.
It's the foundation.
And that felt sense of belonging has to be there. And then, truly and honestly, all of those things bring generalized connection. And then those kids can start to bring that out into the world with them. It's absolutely this, for me, was probably the largest needle movement that I saw. When I was able to cultivate these pieces into my everyday classroom, that's when no more behaviors went down to the office. That's when our scores started to climb. That's when I started loving being in the classroom again. This, for me, was the magic mover here.
Oh, it's so inspiring.
Yeah.
And like we said, it starts with that first competency of interpersonal awareness.
Hmm.
We have to first and foremost be in touch with what's going on here in this space.
Hmm.
What cues is Beth showing me right now?
Uh-huh.
What nonverbal and verbal
Mhm.
like messages am I picking up in this space? So, as educators, it's so important that we are embodying interpersonal awareness so we even know how to facilitate relational intelligence within our classrooms. And we've got 3 practices that are actually pretty simple that you can do for yourself as a teacher as you're engaging with your students, but also that you can teach your students to do with
Yes.
one another and in their relationships and lives. And the first one is, I would say, the most obvious. It's word watcher.
Yep.
Like as Beth speaks or as I'm speaking now, Beth, you're listening to the words that I am saying. Or if you're listening to the podcast, you're listening to what is it that I am saying.
Mhm.
And you're just drawing your attention to, what are like the key words that I'm hearing? Or what are the things that she's emphasizing? Or what are the things that, or words that bring up a lot of emotion in her? And there's signals here that we can pick
Of
up
course.
on that help us better understand others.
Absolutely. And this again ties in with that cognitive learning where we are teaching our kids how words are everywhere in our
Hmm.
world, right? So helping them to discern which words are the power words, which
Yes.
ones are really, really driving us where we need to go. In such a digital world, this is a powerful tool because it pulls them back into the human experience
Yes.
and they're understanding that spoken language between one another.
And they can check for understanding. Is this
Absolutely.
what was
Yes.
really important to you
Yes.
here? And that can be unbelievably helpful.
Mhm.
And that's the obvious one, right? What
Mhm.
we say. Pay
Sure.
attention to the words, but there's also cue detective. This
Mhm.
is more like, ooh, I'm a
Well,
cue detective.
yeah.
This is paying attention to the nonverbal cues.
Mhm.
How is Beth sitting right now? I can tell that she seems relaxed because her shoulders are back, her legs are crossed. She's smiling right now. So I
Yep.
can sense she's feeling connected and beautiful. I have a lot of
Yep.
insight into what's going on for her by looking at the nonverbal cues. But in the classroom context, right, you might be looking at not that, right? Different kinds of behaviors, maybe arms are crossed, shoulders are down, heads on the desk, tired, like, or maybe there's a lot of heightened energy. They just got back from recess or lunch, and you're picking up on the tone of the room, the nonverbal gestures, and that's insight.
Yeah. And speaking to those things in your classroom context, you as the adult in the room are going to pick those things up, but we can also reflect this back to our students.
Totally.
I see we are activated and busy. Do you guys all notice that? Do you see that in each other's bodies? I see we've got some heads on desks. Was it a rough weekend? What's going on?
Mhm.
Just reflecting back to them what you're noticing. And by doing that, you're modeling the value in this practice. This is how we read one another's body language.
For sure. And this is super connected to our final practice that we teach in the master's program, which is called Vibe Tracker.
Love it.
And I love it because it's just kids love that name. It's like the vibe tracker. Like, literally, what's the vibe of what's
Yep,
inside this room right now?
that's right.
And people can clock that. You, as an
Yes.
educator, I mean, that's our primary role, is not just to teach math or, science. It's to be able to be tapped into what's going on here. And then from that place of awareness, then we can respond with what's needed in the moment. And Vibe Tracker allows you to name the vibe of what's going on inside here.
And this is a great one to really keenly pay attention to, because it's not always even the initial vibe. This is a skill set where we as educators can notice when now there's a shift. I'm starting to lose them, or they're
Mhm.
starting to get a little bit busy. And before
Mhm.
that becomes something we have to react to, if we are practicing this regularly and with intention, we can now respond and get them back before we lose them, and the learning can continue.
And one of the things I love to do with my students was have them like be the leaders of the vibe tracker.
Oh,
So
I
we'd have
love that.
like different kids come up and they'd be like, okay, let's talk about what's the vibe that's happening right now. So it's not like me being the
Yep.
teacher. Obviously, I would model in the beginning of the year doing it myself just to help them orient. But then I'd be like, what's the vibe in here, everyone? And they'd
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, it's really noisy and loud," and, "Okay, so what do we need to do about that?"
Yeah. And what's beautiful about this too is that this particular area that we're working in, we're talking about observing. We are not talking about judging, right? So often I think when things feel chaotic or they feel disengaged or whatever it is, we can tend to go into internal judgment there.
Mhm.
We're just observing. And then that gives us the space to then respond.
Right. So
Yeah.
there's 3 simple practices that you can draw on in the very beginning.
Yeah.
From the start, we've got word watcher,
Yep.
listening to the words. We've
Uh-huh.
got cue detective, looking at the nonverbal cues, really paying attention to what's happening underneath the surface.
Uh-huh.
And then we have vibe tracker.
Yeah.
Right? And you can do that not just with yourself, but also with your students, and it can be really
Absolutely.
powerful.
No, those are all beautiful.
Mhm.
All beautiful. And then from there, we can step into moving a little bit closer to one another and start to introduce the practice of empathy. Like, start to really look at what that means
Yep.
and how we can start to engage in that felt sense with one another.
And one of my favorite role models in the world, Brené Brown.
Ah,
Oh, the way she talks about empathy, it
yeah,
blows my mind
yeah,
every time I hear it, which is not that I'm going to understand your experience
correct.
because I will never know, right, what it's like, for example, to have lived through breast cancer.
Right.
But I can know and understand the feeling of sadness or fear or
Mm.
disappointment that you had, and so it's about connecting to the feeling that someone else has, but not to the situation,
Right.
and that's empathy.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. And I think we as educators really, this is such an important one for us to practice ourselves so that when we are recognizing the feeling in someone else, to recognize it, hold space for it, but be very delicate and careful with ourselves not to jump into all the way into feeling it for the other person. That's
Exactly.
right. We want to keep a little bit of space there, but to train and teach our in our classroom culture that there is space for understanding and that we can hold space for one another in our bigger feelings can be just that's when safety can start to really hook into a classroom.
And that's why we don't just stop at I connect with others as a definition of empathy, but that we also tag on I connect with others while honoring our boundaries.
Love that.
It's so important, and it's so important to teach our young kids how
That they
to
need to do that as well.
know their
Yes.
boundaries and
Yes.
honor them. And
Absolutely.
so, one of our favorite practices that's so foundational to empathy at Breathe for Change is mindful listening. And do you want to share what mindful listening is to you? Like when you think about what does it mean to listen mindfully? What are we talking about? What are we not talking about?
This, I think, more now today, it's just more important than it ever has been
Mhm.
before. Mindful listening to me and in my experience has been to remain fully present
Mhm.
and fully attuned
Mhm.
to the human who is doing the speaking.
Mhm.
Where and that means not just externally, it also means what's happening internally.
Mhm.
So, as I am actively listening, someone else is sharing, I am actively listening, I am receiving what they are saying. This is not judging. This is just receiving. This is not questioning. This is just receiving. This is not problem solving. This is just receiving. I am holding space and receiving all that comes in. And once the sharing is complete, I am then repeating back in my own words what it is I received and then asking, did I get that right?
Totally.
This is so powerful to me. And I didn't realize until I started practicing it how much I was not living this.
Because so often when we think we're listening,
Correct.
we're judging, we're forming our opinion, we're thinking about what advice to give, we're literally not even paying attention to anything.
Totally.
We're on another planet thinking
Whoops.
about something
Yes.
way over here, or
Yes.
thinking about something we're nervous about in 10 weeks from now, like not
Yes.
here, not present.
Mhm.
And so this practice is literally a skill that we can support our students in building, and that we can model and
Yes.
actually practice ourselves, so our students can see an embodied experience of this. And I think in the beginning of the school year, the best way to teach it is to use a specific protocol
Mhm.
where you time it as the educator. You think
Mhm.
of what prompt you want to offer your students, and it's the perfect time to build relationships. So a prompt might be like, what are your hopes and dreams for the school year? Or what are you excited about? Or what are you nervous about? And then you have them find a partner, and you assign one person to be the speaker and the other person to be the mindful listener. And then you decide the timing. I'd recommend like a ratio of 2 to 1, meaning if the person's sharing for 2 minutes, then the mindful listener is holding space, listening mindfully for those 2 minutes. And then they reflect back what they heard the person say for 1 minute. So 2 to 1 ratio. Or maybe you have them speak for 1 minute and the person's reflecting back 30 seconds. So you want to scaffold the timing so they can fill the space for the whole amount of time. And that's something you need to establish, is like, this is your space to speak, to take up space when you're the speaker.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, and when I've done this with adults, I've done this in a room full of school administrators from all across my state. And you could see them wanting to get notepads out and take notes with one another. That's a no-no. We're
No,
not
no,
going to
no,
allow
no.
that. We're not going to allow that here. This is meant not to the notebook is not doing the listening. The notebook is not doing the retaining. We, human to human,
Yep.
are doing that for one another. And be ready for this one to be a little bit scary for people because they're afraid they're not going to get it right.
Yes.
And they're going to forget things. That's okay.
And normalize that from the beginning. You might be afraid that you're not going to get it right, but I
Yes.
promise, if you just are present with your friends
Yeah.
and you fully take in what it is that they're saying, it will naturally come. All you need to do is speak to the essence of what you heard them say by
That's right.
filling in the sentence frame. I heard you say
Yep.
this. I heard you say that. And you can let them know they don't need to get the words perfect. It's like, what did you hear in that? And it can be incredibly powerful. And it can be a way that have them connect more deeply in relationship, foster vulnerability. It can also be a way that they process the learning. Like,
Absolutely.
what was easy, what came natural for you in this math lesson, and what was
Mhm.
challenging? And then
That's
2 minutes, 1 minute, right? And it's this way of processing. Or what insights did you gain from this lesson? We're using the mindful listening protocol, and it can be unbelievably powerful. One thing you want to remember is to have both partners switch and each play the role, so everyone gets the opportunity to both share and then hold space and reflect back.
Right, because both things are vulnerable. Both
Mhm.
things are hard to do and both
Mhm.
need practice.
Absolutely. It's
Yes.
so powerful.
Yeah.
So that's a great foundational practice to empathy. It
Yes.
builds that sense of connection and listening.
Mhm.
Like, it's required. If you
Yes.
can't listen to another person
Mm-mm.
mindfully, then there's no way that you can feel into their experience and step into their shoes.
And so often this is a thing. Empathy is a thing we try to educate our kids on. We try to teach them what it is. And this is an experience
Mhm.
of empathy. And so it's not happening here. It's happening here.
Yeah,
And that's
in
profound.
the body.
It's a way that they can actually take it with them.
It's beautiful.
Mhm.
And so empathy is foundational to repair.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. right? I mean, challenges surface in our relationships every single
Of
day
course.
between peers, between us and our colleagues, between
Mhm,
us and our loved ones, in social groups. I mean,
mhm.
every day
Yeah.
conflicts arise, and that's just the beauty and nature of being human.
That's so true. It's so true. And I think very few adult humans walking around on this planet that I have moved into relationship with have had a high skill set in how to repair when damage has been done. And we are going to bump into each other. It is
Yes.
just going to happen. And frequently, when it does, we tend to go into self judgment, or we go into shame, or we go into blame, or we go
Yeah.
into all of these other coping mechanisms that do not serve us.
Mhm.
So, when I was sitting through my Breathe for Change training, one of the jaw drop moments that I
Hmm.
had was when you invited us in to begin the peace
Uh,
process, right? This is all based out of nonviolent communication, which is
Marshall Rosenberg is a
it
genius.
was a structure I had not been introduced to
Mhm.
before. And when I first went into this was another one that brought me to tears instantaneously, just because it is so direct. And so it just gets right to the core. There's no storytelling, there's no hemming and hawing, there's no room for blame, there's no room for shame. It's just what is and what
Mhm.
needs to be. And this protocol, it surprised me how accessible this was to
Oh,
all
yeah.
levels, all
I mean,
ages.
it's just 4 simple steps, and these are 4 steps that you can integrate into how you reflect on your own experience and,
Mhm.
more importantly, how you communicate.
Yeah.
But then it's also something that you can teach your students to engage with from the very beginning of school, and it
Yes.
becomes literally how your students will repair conflict.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
and
literally. So let's walk through the 4 steps, and I know you and I have had so much experience integrating this into
yep,
pre-K through 12
all
spaces
levels.
and with adults, so we can talk a little bit about how to differentiate this
Okay.
for all different age ranges. But there's 4 steps. So the first step is observations, the second step is feelings, the third step is needs, and the fourth step is requests. So step 1, observations. This is where in a relationship, in a situation, you state the facts of what happened. Now, that means no opinions, no judgments, no generalizations, right? Let's just say, and this isn't true, that you, Beth, came to this podcast episode 10 minutes late.
Yep.
So the fact of that situation might be, Beth, when you arrived 10 minutes late to the podcast,
Mhm.
right? That's like the
Done.
start of
One
it.
sentence.
One
Yep.
sentence.
Mhm.
Usually, if you're writing this and reflecting about it and you're like writing sentence after sentence, there's so much story there.
That's absolutely right.
Not fact. You wanna get to the essence of what happened.
Mhm.
When the shirt was on the ground
Mhm.
yesterday,
Mhm.
when you my pencil was taken off of my desk, like things
Mhm.
that are fact.
Yes. Yes.
Then you move into step 2. This is feelings. This is
Mhm.
where you state how you felt or how you still currently feel
Yep.
about the situation. So, for example, when you were 10 minutes late to the podcast episode, I felt confused, upset, and nervous,
Mhm.
right? So, I would recommend if you're just introducing this to especially the littles, just have them choose one feeling word.
Right.
If they're middle schoolers or high schoolers, you might allow them or even encourage them to find 2 words or
Mhm.
3. I would say 3 max because our emotions are nuanced, but offer the range. But saying just the feeling word, we're not saying sad because of blah, 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 blah. Just the word I feel or I felt. And one thing to note here is it's so critical to distinguish between I feel and I felt, I language, versus you made me feel
Nope.
or it made me feel.
Mm-mm.
No
Just own
one
it.
and nothing can make us feel anything. Own it, name it to claim it. Then from feelings, you move into step 3, needs,
Mhm.
which is using the sentence frame because of my need for or because I value. And this is where you name, likely if it's in the context of repair, what needs weren't satisfied in the
Right.
moment. So when you were 10 minutes late to the podcast, I felt confused, upset, and nervous because of my need for communication,
Mhm.
connection, and trust. And then you move into step 4, which is requests. This is where you make literally any request. It could be a yes, no answer. It can be, so would you just acknowledge that you heard me? Right? It can be anything. So in this case, I might say, so would you be willing next time we do an episode together to text me if you know that you're going to arrive late, or just more importantly, just to try and arrive at least 10 minutes early so we can prep?
Absolutely. And then on the flip side of that, the person who is being asked to do the repair can respond any way they choose. There is they have full choice here for how they want to respond. And your sharing really doesn't matter.
Right.
Your own lived experience, it should never be tied to how they choose to respond.
For sure.
What you are doing is acknowledging your felt
The
experience.
success of the peace process or the nonviolent communication process has everything to do with the person who's speaking, clarifying and communicating those 4 steps.
Yes.
And the other person has agency to respond however it is that they want.
Yeah.
That's their
That
choice.
being said, most of the time when I use this, I
Oh,
get a beautiful
of
connective
course, it's an
response.
opportunity to deepen
Yes.
relationship, and that's why
Yeah.
it's so profound, and this works for all ages. I mean, I use this in my pre-K class,
Mhm.
called it the peace process, had my
Love that.
peace corner,
Mhm.
modeled with adults first how to use it. Like, when you took my pencil, I felt sad because of my need for mm, safety, so would you be willing to give me back my pencil? Right? Simple.
That's right.
And then I'd model it, model it, model it. Then I would model it with another student. Then we'd come up with different scenarios. We do it again. Then I would go into the peace corner and model it. So they knew that we would do the peace process
That's where it
in
belongs.
the peace
Mhm.
corner. Then literally, I kid you not, by October, November of the school year, I never heard a tattle again. All I heard was the solutions that they came up with in the peace corner. Miss Ilana, we solved our problem in the peace corner because they used this 4-step process and they were empowered
Yes.
to do it themselves.
That's right. And it works all the way up into adults. I know I was tasked with bringing this around to staff this year.
Mhm.
And we, at least in our elementary school, we implemented this as their go to for conflict resolution.
Wow.
And in doing that, we didn't have a specific place for this to happen, but we did give them worksheets, scripted
Mhm.
worksheets so that they had access points and they had a needs inventory and they had a feelings inventory. So they could find exactly the right words and prepare for these conversations that feel very vulnerable.
Right.
But some of the reflection back that we've gotten is that it really was an almost immediate reconnection where culturally and historically we've had some disconnect that can last for a
Yeah.
really long time, and then they start to triangulate and talk to other people about these things, and that is just really toxic in any kind of a
Totally.
culture. And this would happen. This is another tool too that when you're working with the older students, same thing. We don't
Oh,
want them
yeah.
going off and talking about one another. We want them coming together and talking to one another. And this is a great tool.
And when you're teaching it to the older students, just use developmentally appropriate examples. Like,
Right.
when you didn't invite me to your house on Saturday, right? When George came
Yep.
over, I felt excluded and sad because of my need for inclusion and connection. So would you be willing to invite me next weekend when you're hanging out?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like, the social dynamics are always at play in the middle and the
Yes.
high school. And I think trying to help students see and realize the power in communicating their
It's
feelings and
huge.
their needs and making requests that are going to bring them closer to each other
Yeah.
can be really reparative.
Yeah. And we can use it directly with our students
Oh
too,
my
from
gosh,
adult to
for
student.
sure.
Yeah.
Like, when you are not seated when I'm reading this book, I feel sad and upset because of my need for listening and
Mhm.
participation.
Mhm.
So, would you all be willing to just take a seat right now? Let's take a few breaths together and then we can continue the story.
And that makes you human, and that
Yes.
brings you together rather than it makes
Yes.
you authoritarian telling them what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been at the peace process grounded in nonviolent communication for 2 decades at this point.
Yeah.
I think we've taught it to over 250,000 educators through our trainings, our masters, and our conferences,
Mhm.
and I've just heard thousands of stories of ripple effects. It's like
Absolutely.
classrooms everywhere. And so the best time to teach it is like at the beginning of the school year. So you're establishing this is the way that we communicate, that
Yeah.
we repair when conflict arises.
This is a cultural expectation, and here
Exactly.
is our routine.
And when you do what you did, Beth, and you teach it to the staff at school, then it becomes a school-wide culture thing.
That's right. And
There's
everybody is safe because they know the
yes.
mechanism of communication. They're not going to get caught in some storytelling thing where they're told they're a horrible human being. Instead, they're just going to be met with here's what happened, here was how it landed, and here's what I can do to make it different.
And this is making me think about the next competency, which is belonging, right? Creating that
Yes.
inclusive container where everyone feels seen, heard,
Hmm.
valued in the learning space. And I'm being brought right into community agreements,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
This establishing of shared values, commitments, agreements
Yes.
that we are all taking ownership of, shared ownership of,
Hmm.
as a classroom or as a staff or as a whole community. And like one of the community agreements might be we use the peace process to
Love it.
resolve conflict
Yeah.
or to communicate when challenges arise.
Yeah. And what sets this apart? Traditionally in schools, we've had classroom rules, right?
Mhm.
And expectations.
Top
What
down.
That's right. This is different because the collective community creates these agreements together
Yes.
and expresses this would make me feel safe in my learning environment. This would help me be ready to learn in this environment within this community. And we might find needs that we never as the educator would have guessed was there.
100%. And you can take your students through a wide range of processes to arrive at your community agreements.
Absolutely.
There's like, you know, full blank landscape where you have everyone working together to think about the community agreements. Maybe
Yeah.
they're in small groups. They're then sharing it with a large group. You're writing down the list of all the things, narrowing it down together, and then arriving at, 3 to 7 community agreements that everyone's
Yes.
going to abide by together and support and embody throughout the year. That takes time, that process of starting from
Yes.
scratch, but it's so powerful when a whole group of people come to consensus around community agreements like that. They own it so deeply. But there's also like this, a guided approach where you can offer some examples, so to
Mhm.
speak, or maybe you have everyone do an individual reflection about what they value, and then you can synthesize some of that and bring it back to the group.
Yep.
Or you can offer, like, these are a list of 10, which ones feel the most resonant to you, and which ones would you change, or which ones are missing here, and then you arrive there. So you can scaffold this in whatever
Absolutely.
way feels most supportive for, one, the age range of
Yes.
students you're working with, and two, like, the audience, like, how much time do you have for this?
Mhm.
But it is worth the time.
And this can remain a flexible document.
Yes.
As the year moves on, you might find some things really are not serving us and we can remove them. Or you might find we were really having issues here. And maybe as a collective, we can come together and find an agreement to neutralize this recurring issue.
Absolutely, and they need to stay physically represented in the
Yes.
space all year. So let's say you come up with 5 community agreements. They're written up on the wall.
Yep.
Maybe you have your students do like art around it or something. And when challenges surface and behaviors, you know, show up that are not necessarily in alignment with those community agreements, then you have conversation about
That's
that.
right.
Hey, I'm noticing that this is happening, which seems out of alignment with what we all came up with together in the beginning. Is like how we wanted to be together. And so let's have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
Is there something that we need to adjust together? How do we want to show up differently in a way that's more supportive? Or do we need to actually update these community agreements because they don't make
Precisely.
sense for us right
That's
now?
exactly right.
It's a
That's
living,
exactly right.
living and breathing document.
Yeah. And they all get their voice.
Totally.
Another way that we love to bring individuals in to feed the collective
Hmm.
is all about me.
Yes.
All about me. And this one I love starting right off the bat. Like,
Yes.
this is a way where we can bring each of our own individual voices to the forefront to introduce ourselves to the
Yes.
collective process. And this brings in such a sense of being seen.
Hmm.
The students themselves get to decide what it is they wish to share.
Hmm.
And so for some of them where this might feel really vulnerable, they get to just start small. For some of them that need a big, loud space, they can come in and take up their big, loud
For
space. But
sure.
each individual gets a space at the table and gets a moment or a
Mhm.
space to go ahead and take center stage.
And I mean, you can have them do an assignment at home where they're collecting pictures about who they are. And you can have a wall where you're putting up these beautiful pieces of art or,
Yep.
it's just imagery of who each person is. There's so many different ways for the students to represent who they are and to share
Yes.
it. But the purpose of All About Me is to give each student that individual space to be seen and celebrated for who they are and to
Mhm.
share about their interests, their passions, and
Mhm.
and for you to get to know them better.
Yeah. And for everyone to agree that all are welcome
Oh,
here.
for sure.
Mhm.
And another one of my favorite practices for cultivating belonging is just like a simple name game where it's like the best. The very beginning of school is my favorite time to do this, maybe even day one or the first week or two. It's just having everyone come up with an adjective that
Yeah.
starts with the first letter of their name or the sound of the first letter of their name. Like I might be inspiring Ilana. Who are
Mhm.
you?
Oh, I don't know.
Beautiful Beth,
I was gonna
brilliant
say
Beth,
bubbly Beth,
bubbly
but
Beth.
yeah.
So, and then you can invite them to come up with a movement that's in alignment with who they are, like
Yes.
inspiring Ilana, and
And then everyone could always just, like,
everyone goes,
reflect
"Hi,
it back.
inspiring Ilana."
Uh-huh,
So you
that's
can have
right.
everyone in a circle or going around the classroom in their desk wherever they are, and it's like, "Hi, I'm inspiring Ilana." Everyone's like, "Hi, inspiring Ilana," and the reason I find this to be so incredible, and I've done this with thousands of students and educators, is because research shows that one, knowing someone's name is so important to relationship building. And
Yes.
two, when you say someone's name, you repeat someone's name 3 times the first day that you meet them, you're like exponentially more likely to remember their name and so this is just an opportunity for people to, one, have a visual memory of the name, right? The
Mhm.
movement, have an adjective that sparks the memory of the name, and then also to repeat the name multiple times. And then it ends up carrying through the school year. People will be like, oh, hey, Bubbly Beth in the hallways or
Right.
whatever. And it
Right,
becomes so
and
fun.
it creates that safety where when they are strangers, when they don't know each other yet, at least they have a name, and
Mhm.
that can begin all of
It's
the rest of it.
so beautiful.
Mhm.
And, the final practice that's coming to mind for me about belonging is equitable sharing,
Mm.
right? Belonging is about having a space for everybody
Mhm.
to be seen and heard, and equitable sharing, which, as you know, we literally do all the time in our
Yep,
master's program, in
yep,
Zoom breakout rooms. And in classrooms, physically everywhere, is just an opportunity for each person to have the exact same amount of time to share in response to a prompt while the rest of the group listens. You could do equitable sharing with 2 people, you could do it with 3 people, 4 or 5, you could do it with a whole classroom. But it's a timed process where each person gets a minute or 2 minutes to share in response to any topic. And the beginning of the school year, it's a great opportunity, let's say, to get people into small groups and to ask deep questions about themselves or to share who they are, what they
yeah,
care about, or what they're inspired to learn in this class. And use the equitable sharing protocol. And you can facilitate this as the educator for the whole room. Okay, first person, you have 1 minute to speak.
yeah.
Ready, go. And wow, it works so, so powerfully.
And I think as educators, we've all had those experiences when we don't have these protocols to lean on,
Hmm.
we have the kids that will not share.
Yep.
that will not take up their space. We also have those kids that will take up all the
Oh,
space.
yeah.
And so putting these parameters in might feel scripted and bulky in the beginning. But what it produces, especially if you hit this just right at the very beginning,
Yep.
just as you're
This
starting off
is
the
how
school
we
year,
do it in this class.
then they will know I am expected to take up space and I am expected to make space.
Mhm.
And this is just such a beautiful protocol that we can lean on. Therefore, everybody has the expectation. Once they know it, it's there. You just say, this is what we're doing, and they can take their spots and be ready to go. And this, for those who are sharing and maybe don't have lots to share, it's also okay to just sit in some
Yeah.
silence and still let it be their time. And maybe something else will spark. Or maybe
Mhm.
we're just holding space to appreciate the
Yeah.
fact that they shared in the first place. Like,
And similar to the mindful listening protocol, it's very important when you're first introducing this practice of the equitable sharing protocol to ensure that people who are listening to the speaker, we're not cutting them off, we're not interrupting, we're not saying, "Oh, me too." There's
mm-mm,
no verbal interaction as the
right.
listener. We can use nonverbal gestures, maybe hand on heart if something's
Yes.
resonating, or maybe just like a nod, like you're doing right
Mhm.
now, to
Yep.
let me know you're hearing me. But there is no back and forth. It's not a discussion. It's not a conversation. It's an opportunity for each person to be heard. And how it can work if there's a larger group doing this, 3 or more, is you can invite the group to decide who's the first person who wants to share, who's feeling courageous. And then that person shares. You can say, okay, ready, go. You have 1 minute to share. You have 2 minutes. You're tracking the time so they don't have to think about it. And then when your timer goes off, you can say, okay, complete your share. And now, first person, choose the next person to share. And then that person goes, and then you'll either ring your singing bowl, or maybe you say, okay, second person, complete your share, and then have them choose the next person to share. And then you continue that process until everyone in the group has had the opportunity to
Yeah. And
share.
then nobody gets missed, nobody
Nobody
gets
gets missed.
lost. And no one is hijacking.
It is the most democratizing strategy I've ever experienced in
Mhm.
education, which is why, I mean, I've literally never not used it in the last 10 years that I've facilitated any group learning experience,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
little children as young as 2, 3, 4 to I did a workshop last week in my parents' uh, senior citizen home, like,
Oh,
uh,
yes.
pre-K to gray. It
Yeah,
works.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right. No, it's a beautiful one, and we use it. This is one, like you said, that we used all the way through our training, and it is just now embedded in me as one of the truly, truly brings equity to a group of
for
humans.
sure.
Yeah, I
It's
love it.
it's incredible.
And once we can create that sort of equity with everything that we've talked about so far, right? We've brought in the awareness, we're looking around, we're understanding what's happening, we have that felt sense of what's happening among us. We've designed places for us to reach in and have empathetic
Mhm.
experiences with one another. We've learned repair. We are now practicing repair.
Yes.
And now we've fostered belonging. What all of that does together, it's
Connection!
connection, right? This is what
Yes.
humans, maybe more than anything, need
Desperately.
to be fully vibrant, fully awake, fully alive, and fully participate in life.
That's it. I mean, and that's when I think about what is education for? It's not for learning the different subjects.
No.
It's not for getting good grades. It's for experiencing human connection,
Mhm. Yeah.
that intimate, deep, rich connection that all of us long for.
Mhm.
And when we experience connection with ourselves, connection with those around us, connection with our community, connection with something larger than ourselves, but especially connection in our relationships,
Mhm.
that's when anything becomes possible.
Mhm.
It's when we're inspired. It's when we're connected to our purpose. It's when we feel better in our bodies. It's when we feel healthier emotionally. I mean, it's through connection relationally that all the other forms of human intelligence become uplifted.
Yeah. And this is a space where we get to acknowledge that we're not meant to walk in isolation.
No.
We're not meant to carry this life on our
Mm,
own. We really
mm,
are designed to work in tandem with one another.
mhm.
And one of the practices that changed me forever in
Tell
my
me.
is was accountability buddies. First of all,
Oh,
I love the
thank you.
name of it.
I made up the name. That's the best.
Right? I love the name.
Accountability buddies.
This is a protocol where we find someone in our existence who is willing to share a goal or
Mhm.
share a dream with us. And we don't have to have the same goal or the same dream, but we are going to work in tandem. We are going to partner
Yep.
and we are going to hold one another to account. We are going to
Yes.
stay interested. I will remain interested in what your goal is. I will continue to bring back that goal to you.
Mhm.
I will want updates. I will want to prod you when you're telling
Oh,
me that you're not moving
yeah.
towards your goal. And you are going to do the same for me.
And I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader
Right.
every step of the way, especially when things get tough, which they
Yes.
do.
Yes.
And facilitating accountability buddies as educators is revolutionary and transformational for our students. And
Mhm.
you can do that from the beginning of the school year, right?
Mhm.
Let's say in some equitable sharing protocol that you facilitate or a mindful listening protocol that you facilitate, you're inviting your students to share what are their hopes and dreams
Mhm.
for what they want to get out of this class this year.
Yeah.
And then they share it and they're with partners. And then you go, hey, this person's now going to be your accountability buddy
Yeah.
for the rest of this class. And we're going to do accountability buddy check ins this year once a week to see how you're progressing each towards your goals for yourself. And if you need to adjust or adapt your goals, you can do that in relationship with your accountability buddy, and they can support you through every step of the process, especially when things get tough and you find yourself off track or
Yeah.
losing focus. That's what your accountability buddy is there for.
Yes. Yes.
And there's so many different ways to integrate accountability buddies into your school year,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. And as colleagues, we get to do this with one another
Yes.
as well. For me, I actually I introduced this to my school principal
Of
this
course you
last year,
did.
right? And she and we both knew what one another was. We were both stepping into fairly new roles together.
Yeah.
And that's scary and
Mhm.
very vulnerable. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of learning that takes place.
Yep.
And so we both wanted to hold space for one another to achieve and to reach and to
So was
stretch.
she your accountability
She
buddy?
was mine and I was hers. And
So beautiful.
in that, we did have moments of calling one another to account. It's
Mhm.
more than just cheering one another, which was so desperately needed at times. My itty bitty shitty committee woke up a couple of times and she was like,
Uh-uh.
no, 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 get up and out of the mud. Like, we're not staying in there. Get up, go out, dust yourself off, and get back out there. But also, you're off track. You're moving in the wrong direction. You said you
Totally.
wanted to go over here. Why are you going over there? And calling me to the carpet. And without that, I would have kept going down that way
For sure.
until I stumbled into something and had to pick myself up.
For
So
sure.
this is a space of connectivity that keeps us on point.
And what I love about accountability buddies, it's a practice of calling in versus calling out,
Yes.
right? We want to reach the goals that we have for
Yep.
ourselves. And alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. We all know this. When we have people supporting us, there by our sides every step of the way,
Mhm.
calling us in when they notice we're trending in a different direction than where we hope to go for ourselves,
Mhm.
nothing's more powerful. You're an accountability buddy to me, and I love you so deeply, and it's
Mhm.
made such a big difference
Yeah.
for my life.
And in the school systems, we are often like evaluator and then, the one being evaluated where
Oh, the
it's just
hierarchy.
that's right,
Yeah.
where it's just whether we're the teacher grading, right, or we're the administrator evaluating. It's a one-way communication.
Yes.
Accountability buddies is a human dynamic where everybody is attempting to grow and there's like it ebbs and it flows
It's
and
reciprocal.
yes,
It's
yes.
reciprocal.
It's
And that's
beautiful.
why it's so powerful is it's this constant giving and receiving and
Yeah.
lifting each other up
Yeah.
together. And you can do it for the whole year, set up accountability buddies so each person has got their partner to hold each other to their big hopes and dreams they have for
Mm.
themselves. You could do it for a specific project.
Mhm.
You could do it for a whole unit that you're
That's
studying.
right.
You can do it for, who's going to be your lunchtime accountability buddy to make sure you're having an extraordinary lunch break every day. Like
Yeah.
you can integrate this in whatever creative ways make sense for your teaching and leadership context,
Mhm.
but it works.
That's right. What serves you?
What serves you?
Mhm.
And another practice that I just feel fosters so much connection is peer cheer.
Oh, it's a beautiful
The
one.
best.
Yeah,
And
focusing on what is working.
yeah, in
Yeah.
another person. And it's just an opportunity. You might do this after people are working together. You might do this after a whole school day. You might do this after literally people come back from a weekend. Like, let's start or end this experience with a peer cheer. So, should we do it for each other?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, can I cheer you?
Please do.
Okay. So I just want to give you the biggest peer cheer because you bring your whole heart to everything that you do,
Mm.
to the way you teach, to the way you love, to the way you parent. And it's so inspiring to me as a teacher, a leader, and a parent myself. I'm like, I want to teach, lead, and parent the way Beth does because of the heart you bring.
Oh my
So I
gosh,
just wanted
that's
to give
so
you that peer
beautiful.
cheer.
Thank you. Well, I want to give you the biggest peer cheer because you have an expansiveness that I just admire so, where you are never finished expanding possibilities, expanding horizons. Like you have this energetic and this drive to just continue on your growth journey and just not to leave anyone behind. It's not a race, it's not a competition, it's a come with me energy. And there is something, the inspiration that I have garnered from you has shifted my life path forever. I know, I'm gonna get teary. Yeah, but
Beth.
it is, we change each other. We change each other, and I think
Yeah.
having these opportunities where we can acknowledge
Mhm.
how someone has changed us,
It's so powerful.
yeah,
Thank you.
really beautiful.
And so you can lead the peer cheer in your classroom, right?
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be a big thing,
Mm,
right? People always say, well, I mean, I don't really know this person that well.
mhm.
You can peer cheer a random person.
Yes.
Like, wow, the way that you smile when I'm talking, it really
Yeah.
makes me feel seen.
Mhm.
You can model the peer cheer first in the way that you acknowledge your students or the way you acknowledge a colleague in front of a group, if that's, something that would resonate for them to see the power of this. And then you just have people do it in partners, and it's so powerful. And each person gets a peer cheer like we did.
Right, everyone gets
Everyone
to be
gets one.
seen and
Yeah,
recognized.
just like equitable sharing.
Yes, we did this actually in a staff meeting this last year. At the end of the year, we
Oh.
had a data staff meeting where we looked at the data
I
of
remember
our
you
school
calling
year
me and telling me about this.
because my teachers knocked it out of the park.
Park.
And so we analyzed the data. We had the busy meeting where we all looked at it. We talked about what happened. We did all of that. And then the very last prompt was to address another team, so a different grade
Mhm.
level team than your own, and acknowledge them for something you saw in the data. And this professional community felt so bolstered. They
Ugh.
felt so seen, they felt so valued and so celebrated. And what it did to foster a sense of true connection and true team. We are often isolated in our own little
Oh,
teams, in
yeah.
our own four walls. So even as adults, this might sound childish, but what
Oh,
it did for our professional community was astounding.
astounding. I mean, we do it weekly in our Breathe for Change team meetings.
Yeah.
Time for peer cheers. And
Mhm.
people feel so uplifted and celebrated,
Yeah.
acknowledged.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It is.
And I do it at home with my littles,
Of
and
course.
they then do it back to me, and it's this, like, sweet thing, like, I really loved when you hugged me today. I felt so special.
And that
And
there goes back to helping us reprogram these
yes.
internal thoughts that we have. Is if we're getting flooded with this external validation and recognition for what is beautiful and wonderful
Mhm.
about us, what we are doing that is making a profound effect, some of that that itty bitty shitty committee can go ahead and take a
It's
back
like,
seat.
"See you later.
That's
We
right.
don't need you anymore.
That's right.
There's no room for you."
No.
Yeah, and what I love about the peer cheer is that everyone in the space, no matter how many people are in the space, all your little kiddos in the classroom or your older students or the whole staff, everyone gets to give and receive a peer cheer.
Hmm.
But there's also this other practice that is one of my favorites in the world that's called an appreciation
Mm,
circle. And the appreciation circle is an opportunity in any community to open up space for whoever feels called in the group to just share their appreciation, to
yeah.
share what they're grateful for. It might be about the experience that was collectively just shared together. It might be about someone in this group who did something awesome or
Yeah.
inspiring. It might be about, you know, someone acknowledging themselves for
That's
what they're
right.
proud of or what they accomplished, or maybe it's I just wanna appreciate the fact that all of us are here together or that we're alive. It could be literally anything. Anything goes with the appreciation circle,
Hmm.
and as the facilitator of this, I love to do it at the end of an experience. The end of class each day is
Hmm.
often what I recommend for teachers, or the end of a specific activity, or the end of the week. It might be a great ritual to do an appreciation circle. But what I love about this is that you can open up the space and then people just kind of popcorn their shares. Or if you're trying to ensure that, you know, people are, have making space and taking space, then you can have people raise their hand and you
Sure.
can intentionally call on a diverse group of students or colleagues to ensure that, you know, the
Yeah.
quieter voices get some space, but just a few minutes to hear from two, three, four, five people about what they appreciate. That's what they remember when they leave.
And just a differentiation technique, a scaffolding technique is that when I was doing this with my littles, the popcorn can sometimes, like you said, be a little bit much.
Yeah.
So we had a talking stick.
I love
And then
it.
they would find someone else to hand the talking stick to, and they could choose, so it would be the kids that were raising their hands, but I didn't even have to foster who was speaking next.
Even
They
better,
would hand the talking stick to one another and share.
you're creating more agency.
Right.
They're feeling empowered.
Mhm.
You are more a part of the community versus top
Yes.
down leading the community.
Yeah.
And all of these different ways that we as educators can co create the learning experience in relationship to our students.
Mhm.
That's where the magic happens.
It is. And so often I think we're afraid to let go of control
Hmm.
because then things will get out of control. But what's true is that when we can utilize, we've just given you, I don't even know how many
So
strategies.
many, like 15.
But when we start to scaffold these in and these start to become regular practices throughout our days and inside our classroom culture, we no longer, it's a lot up front. We do have to front load all of this and hand them these tools. But then what I've learned and experienced is that once they have it, they really do make it theirs. And they begin to be the ones that bring in, maybe
Mhm.
this would be a good time for equitable sharing. Maybe
Yes.
it's time for an appreciation circle. I need to see my accountability buddy. Like whatever it might be,
Yeah.
they begin to find the moments where it's most appropriate to
Mhm.
bring the tools in, and then they have it forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
It will carry forth inside them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
So, we just gave you an enormous
A lot.
toolkit for relational intelligence, right?
Building.
To
Yeah.
build community, to foster deep relationships, and to ultimately enhance human connection.
Yeah.
And so let's break it down.
Okay.
For the first competency of interpersonal awareness,
Mm-hmm.
we have the word watcher, right?
Yep.
That's where you're really paying attention to the words of
Mm-hmm.
another. We have the cue detective, which is like, what are
Nonverbal.
those nonverbal cues that I'm sensing? And the vibe tracker, right? What's the vibe that's going on inside here?
Mhm.
That's the awareness layer, the observe competency of interpersonal awareness. Then we have empathy. Ugh, that
Yeah.
practice of mindful listening, holding space, giving the gift of your presence. And
And
nothing is a better present than that.
that's right.
And that protocol specifically, where you have a speaker who
Mhm.
speaks in response to a vulnerable prompt for a certain amount of time, 1 or 2 minutes, and then the mindful listener who reflects back the essence of what the speaker says, and then they switch roles.
So beautiful.
Empathy. Then the third competency of repair, we have that powerful practice of the peace process,
Yes.
the 4-step process of observations, feelings, needs, and requests that was created by the genius Marshall Rosenberg, who just generated nonviolent communication, which is a gift to the world.
Absolutely.
Best way to repair and to teach your students how to repair.
Yes.
And then the fourth competency, belonging, starts with co-creating those community agreements.
Everyone at the table.
Everyone is at the table. How do we want to show up together this
Mhm.
year? And then fostering and celebrating that individuality through all about me
Love
presentations.
it.
Love it. And finally, the name game, right? With the adjective and the name and the movement, and equitable sharing, where each
Yeah.
person gets an equal opportunity to share in response to whatever it is that you're talking about.
Mhm.
And ultimately, it's about connection,
Yeah.
where we gave you some really meaningful practices. First, accountability buddies.
So good.
So good. Getting your person to hold you accountable, and the peer cheer,
Mhm.
shared appreciation, and the appreciation circle, where whoever feels called can appreciate. And we hope that this was super valuable and that it
Yeah.
helps you start your school year off right.
And I just don't think that anything should take a higher priority at the beginning of the year than truly building a foundation for high relational intelligence, where our students can really know one another, read one another, where we can read them, where they can read us, and where we can all meet somewhere and have a shared experience. Because each and every one of us is going to come in depleted on some days, and we're going to need
Mhm.
the others to hold space for us, and vice versa. And where one of us is maybe struggling, the others can now, this container creates that space for them to step in and assist one another. And it's not, we are no longer policing our organization, policing our classroom. We are fostering
Mhm.
a collective consciousness. And this just goes beyond in saving you time down the road.
Mhm.
Really, really pushing and deeply embedding this in those early weeks, game changer.
And it's really relational intelligence that makes us uniquely human. No
Yes.
machine can replace this.
No. Nope.
No machine or AI or technology can feel deeply the way we feel in relationships, can connect, can empathize,
Mm-mm.
can inspire.
Mm-mm.
Never.
Mm-mm.
It's just not possible. And so when we focus on this in schools, that's where the juice of education happens. It's
Mhm.
in connection.
Yeah, the learning sits on top
Yeah.
of all of
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Truly. Well, this was such a lovely conversation.
Beautiful.
I love it. And we
Yeah.
hope that if you're listening, that this has been meaningful for you, and literally just go
Yes.
bring these practices in, see what resonates, see what doesn't,
That's right.
continue to utilize the practices that are most meaningful to you and your
Yeah.
community. And I'm
And
just so excited for you.
everyone deserves that safe learning environment, and we deserve that beautiful community in which to work as well. So be the creator.
For
You
sure.
can, yeah, you got this.
Enjoy. See you.